I've had a story, it's an absolute shocking story, where a person said to me when I rang for the debt, this is many, many years ago, and they said, their child had been diagnosed with cancer, this and that. I'm sorry. I said, I'll let it go, contact you in a few months, and that's fine. It's not important. When I've contacted them back months later, to check in and everything's going, clearly they were lying because they didn't know what I was talking about. What are you talking about? And then I lost it because you're taken, that is absolutely, wild. And I went hard on them and I said, well, they were lying. The next call you make, you be cynical and don't trust them. You can't do that because you've got to treat each one on the next, and it's its own merit.
Yeah, cool. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming out all this way
thanks for
in the
having
rain as well, which is
gloomy day.
Bit of a gloomy summer at the moment, isn't it?
Gloomy, this is a good start to summer, isn't it?
I wonder if we're going to get a summer. Do you think we'll get a summer?
I think from next week.
We'll get 3-4 days.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that's enough.
For the rest of the...
I always get confused with the La Nina and El Nino. It's like, it wasn't a La Nina last
What's
year.
that for? Oh, what's that
for? Weather pattern.
El Nino.
Dude, I didn't...
It's going to be wet or it's going to be really dry.
Yeah.
Well, they reckon it's going to be a really hot summer, so...
Hopefully not bushfire hot, though, being rural where I am.
Yeah.
Crazy.
They'll make you prepare for it, which is what they normally do. But I don't know. It doesn't look like it at the moment, does it? More like you get ready for this weather's ready for the ducks, not for...
But it didn't look like, with the flooding, it came out of absolutely nowhere, didn't it? Those floods.
Yeah. Well, Gippsland have got them at the moment.
Oh, they got floods again?
They got floods again at the moment, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
I was
that.
watching last night. I saw that. So I pay a little bit of attention to that because my wife's got family she's from Gippsland.
Yeah.
But, so I saw that on the news. So... yeah, floods, and that was the 1st of December. So
emergency.
Welcome to summer.
Yeah, that's it. If anyone listening, I think it's emergency.vic.gov.au, just in case.
Just in case.
Yeah. Australia's so big, it can be bushfires in Brisbane and then flooding in south,
Yeah, 100%.
South
you
Australia.
can get the same. And in Melbourne, you get all 4 in one day, so anything can happen. So,
yeah, we're used to it all, I think.
Except for snow, though. We don't get snow in Melbourne, do we? Do we?
No, we don't.
No.
Well, in the outer, if you go to the Dandenong, you might get a bit, but...
I've always wanted that snowy Christmas that I see on television.
Oh,
with
Christmas in July?
Yeah.
That thing there, my wife grew up in Europe, and it goes back to the thing that we always want what we haven't got. And so I always said to her, she was born here, as I said, in Gippsland, and then she went back with her family to Europe, to Serbia, that's where she's from.
Yeah.
And she came, because being an Australian citizen, she came back here I'd like to say for me, but she didn't know me, for a better life and all that sort of stuff. And because she was Australian, it was easy, right?
Yeah.
And I always say to her, it'd be nice for white Christmas and all that sort of stuff. She goes, no. She goes, it's shocking. She goes, getting up to go to school initially and obviously work. Yeah. You're drenched by the time you get into work because you got to scoop the snow out of the front door to get out. You got to change your, some sort of gumboot, otherwise you're going to get soaked. If you don't do that, your pants are gone. He goes, it's an absolute pain. I'm like, so it's perspective. It's just depending on, but I think I like our summers, Christmas,
Yeah, that's true, actually, I think.
The singlets, the Barbies, the out on the beach, it's what we know, I suppose. And then, I like it.
So, Adam, just quickly, so starting from the beginning, so your parents from Italy, or both? Or
both parents.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And you were born here in Australia?
Yeah, correct. Yep. Yeah, I was born here in Carlton.
Yeah, cool.
So, Melbourne. So, my dad came to Australia from Sicily, with his family.
That's South Italy, yeah?
Yeah, the island just out of just the end of the boot. Tip of the boot, you got that island right there. So, he came here, he would have been 3.
Yeah.
So he's got older brothers. So they, like a lot of the Italians or a lot of the Europeans in that particular period, the father would come out first, try and get work and get some money, send money back and get them all going. And so essentially that's what happened. And so he came, he obviously clearly doesn't remember, he was about 3, something like that. And so he grew up in Fitzroy and Ivanhoe. And my mum came here in 68. So she, on a ship, as they all did.
Yeah.
She was about 11, she had 11th birthday on the ship, she tells me. So she did some schooling.
That's young.
Yeah, she did her schooling, or obviously the first 6-7 years of schooling in Italy, hence why she speaks pretty fluent Italian and doesn't have an accent. She speaks fluent English. She's done both. So she grew up in Carlton. So and then obviously they met, and so I'm a first generation Australian.
Yeah,
just essentially that was quite young when he came here, and so I grew up here in the northern suburbs of Melbourne.
What was it like in those areas, in Carlton, like when you were growing up?
Well, they grew up in Carlton. My dad in Fitzroy, my mum in Carlton.
Yeah.
As kids. I grew up, first 10 years in Preston.
Yeah, right.
And then Reservoir, where my family, my parents still live.
Yeah.
What it was like, not in the suburbs, it was, when you're a kid, it's normal. Everything's normal because you don't know any different. So it's, I remember going from, in Preston, there was a sort of a range of the type of neighbours, type of people, Australians, Greeks, Italians, probably more Australians than there were Europeans. And the schooling was pretty much a lot of Australians.
Yeah.
I can't even remember if I may have been the only Italian sort of, and Asians, because it was the 80s and it was the start of, of the Asians coming to Australia. Yeah. And footy was played footy. My next door neighbour played football for the VFL at that stage, South Melbourne and then eventually Port Melbourne. So football was, and my dad played football growing up here and that, locally, nothing. So I loved AFL football. We then moved as a 10-year-old to Reservoir, where it was a lot of Italians.
Yeah.
And it was like, and even though I am Italian, and it was like, this is different.
There was a community of Italians.
Yeah, community. Yeah, there's a lot of
Did
Italians.
you adopt some of the culture again, sort of being
the
in
culture
that
we had, because the food, we spoke English, right? But the food and the stereotypical, we make the sauce and the salamis and the wines and all. We did do that to a degree. We did do that and sort of stuff and that. But I think coming to Reservoir, the school I went to, so it was the last, I think got there into grade 4, 5 and 6. There were a lot of kids of Italian parents like me, but they were older than my parents. My mum was only 18, 19 years between me and my mum, 25 between me and dad. So quite young when I look back compared to the other kids that were there, that they had parents that were a lot older, that didn't speak English at all. So they'd pull the wool over their parents, because they didn't speak English. They could really, I couldn't get away with that stuff because not only they spoke English, they grew up here. So they could, you're not going to fool me what you're doing or saying and all that. Yeah. But these kids all played, and my dad became part of the soccer club. They played soccer. I was like, I don't like soccer. Well, how can you not like soccer with the long surname, the names we called each other then. I know now they're not, long wog name. And it's like, it was a term of endearment. It wasn't anything, no one was having a go at you because it was, and it was like, but I don't like it. It's not what it's not what I grew up. I grew up with football. I grew up with, that's how I grew up. So, so the culture.
You still follow, obviously, AFL? You still follow? Yeah?
Yes, very much so. So I follow Brisbane Lions.
Oh, yeah.
So that stems from Dad growing up in Fitzroy, northern suburb, in north. The AFL shunned us north in the 96 and sent us there because we were broke. There was always tins rattling, trying to raise money for the club through those 80s and early part of the 90s. And so they sent me a team, just when you're about to I got my licence at 19, 20 years old, and beautiful, I can start going to the football, more often with mates and all that. No, send me a team up north and watch it on TV. So I follow Brisbane quite, I've been a member ever since, and I've gone to the previous grand finals, including this year.
Did you go this one?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I went this year.
That was a close
apart
game.
From the result, it was a great game. If I take away from the result, but it was good. It was a great game, and you didn't know who was going to win until probably the last minute, really. So that's always, apart from being the actual supporter that's not happy at that moment. If you take yourself away from that, it was a good game. And I remember telling friends, I said, you can't be critical of the players if they give 100%. It's one of those.
It was so close.
Yeah. So football is a big part of who I am. I watch a lot of it. Probably ask my wife, it's too much. There's 8-9 games a week, and I'll probably watch majority of those.
When's the footy season start again?
Has it ended, has it? No.
I was going to say.
No.
Does it start?
March.
When does it start? March.
March.
Okay, yeah, cool.
March. So it should go March to September. Having said that, Brisbane Lions, or the AFL women's team, the competition's been going since August, and our team, Brisbane Lions women's team, are in the grand final tomorrow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I barrack for Essendon just out of default because I grew up in Essendon.
All right,
but I'm looking for a new
cut
team.
This now? We're going to go.
That's enough.
No, I'm sorry, guys. No, I was actually looking for a new team. I was going to say
What?
Brisbane Lions, maybe.
No, you don't.
I'm going to change teams now.
I'm happy to have your own. The Australian culture is you do not change. Once you got your team,
that's it.
If
is that it?
If you're a kid, you got to about grade 1 maybe.
I'm stuck with Essendon then, am I?
And that's your team. You got to support them through thick and thin.
Yeah,
That's the
you're
Aussie way.
Yeah,
you
it
don't
is, you're
walk
right.
away if something's just because it's too hard or they're
That's
crap.
true. Yeah.
They have had my cousin who's a very big Essendon supporter, and they have had a bad, well, not a bad, but tough.
Oh, we had a couple of good
20s.
games, I felt like, in the last season.
We're talking seasons. Right.
Right.
Haven't played final, won a final for a while. All
Don't
that
rub
sort
it
of
in.
stuff.
Yeah, you're right.
I think they're on their way, but they got some good people now at the club. So
yeah.
I think that.
Yeah, I think didn't we just change coach? This is how little I actually
Did?
felt. Yeah, we just changed coach.
Yep. So Brad Scott, who used to play for Brisbane Lions during our three-peat that we had the early 2000s, 2001, 2 and 3. So he's was a previous North Melbourne coach, but he's come aboard to Essendon last year.
Yeah.
Or this year, last pre-season. So he said his first year. So
We'll see what happens.
See how he goes. Yeah. So.
I'll be following it. I think we'll jump into, so Adam, I guess we'll jump into, so obviously your earlier days as a debt collector. So how did it all start? When did you said you started quite young in debt
about 19.
collection? Yep, 19. What role did you have? Was it called debt collector at that time or was
Yeah, and I'll explain why it was called debt collector because it was so I was 19, I was studying and I wanted a job because you want money to go out, I suppose, and do things. And
deep?
so it's pretty simple. Nothing more than that. Like, and so in those days, I the Centrelink. Now you can go to seek.com, but I did in those days is the mid '90s. Just went to Centrelink, locally in Preston, and in those days on the wall they'd have little cards for job numbers, job number and whatever, and they had one there for debt collector. I thought, 19-year-old kid with a baseball bat's probably not gonna fly here, but no, I took the card and I remember, so I had a resume done that had really nothing because straight out of school. What are you going to have on it? Clearly not no work experience.
Yeah, what did you put on back those days? Was it just
But I completed VCE.
VCE? Oh yeah,
and I was studying
school,
accounting at the time.
Cool.
That was it. Well, what do you do? So anyway, so it was a job in Fitzroy. So I liked the idea of that because married for Fitzroy at the time, and Dad grew up there and all that sort of stuff. So there was a little bit of a synergy there, I thought, or just being a young naive kid, who knows? But anyway, so I went for the job interview and the person, she was an Irish, the manager was an Irish lady. I would say at the time quite an older lady, but probably not. Just when you're 19, everyone's older.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So she was probably younger than what I am now. So, she probably would have been because she had a son that eventually worked with me at the school the same age, sort of thing. So anyway, so when we had the interview, she said, "Oh, so would you like being on the phones and asking people for money?" I'm thinking, well, I don't know. I was thinking, well, never done. Those days, they didn't even have a mobile phone. So I said, that'd be good because I had to have the job. So I didn't want to, you don't want to lie, but you got to sort of.
But at 19, don't you just tell them what they want to hear?
100%.
Yeah.
So, you just, no, I like that. Doesn't bother me.
Being on the phones.
Yeah, no, and I did. That's exactly what I said. And I'm thinking, what else am I going to say? She starts asking me details. I don't know. Barely know me tie my shoelace. I'm going to start, And anyway, so she looked through my resume, the 2-page.
Back in the day, you physically had to put it in.
To handle. 100%. You had to hand it to them or send it in the mail and then wait 2 weeks and all that. But and she saw that I'd put, when you put in those days, you put hobbies and interests, and I'd put football and I put music and play a bit of guitar and whatever. And it just so happened, and it was the best thing that happened in terms of, I don't know if it happened, maybe get the job. She, as I said, she was Irish from Belfast. She goes, "Oh, you like music? What type of music?" And I like older music, anything from Elvis, Beatles, love the Beatles, Queen, and whatever. She goes, my next door neighbour was Van Morrison. Do you know who Van Morrison?
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, really? He sings, Brown Eyed Girl and Gloria." And I said, "Yeah." And so the next half an hour of the interview went towards music.
Talking about music.
Yeah, about his
awesome.
music, other music, and all that. Nothing about the job. She goes, "Oh, that was good. That's fantastic." She goes, "We'll get back to you and we'll let you know." No worries. And they did. By the time I got home that day, I got the job.
Oh wow!
Did you have like a good feeling that because you built the rapport that was enough? Like
No, I thought I was talking music. I went off the subject. That's what I thought. I didn't know any, you know. And to go back, you said how did I get into debt collecting? It was called debt collecting because then we don't use that word now because it is. I try not to use that word.
It's a connotation.
Yeah.
It's a negative. It's good.
Yeah.
Even what we are now as credit controllers, that still has a negative connotation as opposed to say a sales rep, you know, making a phone call, which is positive. You know, you're trying to sell them something they may need or hope they need or anything like that. Yeah. Whereas I'm bringing in the first thing is going to be I want to take something. You know, generally that's so. But anyway, the difference was this place was what's called a mercantile agent. So this is a company that buys bad debts off telcos and banks. So that's essentially what I did. It was people didn't pay their telco bills that were outstanding for who knows up to a year, more even. Home loans that hadn't been paid for up to 10 years. So I was doing a lot of skip tracing and all that sort of stuff. So I got the job.
Yeah.
Right. And it was tough. But looking back now, I'm glad I did it that way. Right around, not started as a customer service trying to collect little debt. It's almost like, you know, if they chuck you in the swimming pool and you can't swim, well, swim. I'll drown. What do you want to do? Yeah. You learn quick and you learn lessons pretty quick.
There would have been some pretty difficult conversations with that sort of amount, like that sort of size of debt. What was it you said?
Yeah, it is. It's it was difficult in the sense that one, I was young, so you're still trying to learn what to say and how to say it because it is I didn't know at the time, but it's a psychological game you're playing. You're trying to essentially get them to pay. So that's the bottom line. The companies, you know, want money. That's but you can't go in there and go, as you find out as you go along, purely just asking for the money. You need to get into the psyche of the person on the other end of the phone and see what type of person you're dealing with. Now I have the ability, and it's not just because of the 27 years experience of the debt collecting, but it's also the years of life itself. I'm a 19-year-old kid then. I'm now a 47-year-old man, and I've had, you know, like anyone would in that period, you had different life experiences. So now you can understand. Whereas as a 19-year-old kid, you're going in there going, I want the money. Why haven't you got the money? You know, and I remember one conversation I had with a customer, with my boss at the time, who was not overly older than me, but old enough. He was 25, 19 to 25. While it's only 6 years, is a lot in terms of life experience because I haven't started work. He's done some work, so sort of, you know, a bit different.
He's paid more bills.
He's paid more bills. I hadn't paid any because I lived at home. My mum and dad did everything for me.
He can empathise with the person on the other end.
Yeah.
Speaking of empathy, like, do you think as you get older, you kind of understand like people's challenges 100%. And you can tap into that a bit more?
It becomes everything.
Yeah.
Because at the start, as I said, you would talk to someone on the phone and they'd say, you know, I lost my job. 19-year-old kid in the back of my mind, I go, go and find another one. Yeah, you know, I went there and grabbed the job and I got one. You know, ill health and you know, and ill health when you're a kid or a young person, you understand it, of course you do, but it's like it doesn't hit you. It doesn't sort of, you know, you don't, you know, or you hear comments. I know I've had a lot of bills this month. Bills come all the time. But when you're older and you've got your own bills and you've got your own family, you realise, they come all the time. That's the problem. They come all the time and you've got to juggle things. Some months you can't afford certain things and all that.
So sometimes you're choosing to pay the bill or you're choosing to take your son out to the cinema.
100%.
And have an outing.
Yeah, 100%. And as I said, and through time, you learn that. You learn that from the conversations you're having and you learn that purely also because you're getting older and you're starting to, have bills yourself, have issues yourself, everything, things that happen to adult people, they happen. I don't care who you are. I've spoken to people that are really, really rich, and I mean the top end of rich in Australia, and then I've spoken to the person that's trying to get off the ground. There's not much of a difference if you dig deep enough. There's not much of a difference between the two. You can be flying, and it's perfect, or what's perfect, but you'd be flying. And then the wrong phone call, whether it's from a doctor, ill health, or you get heap of bills come in, anything. Priorities change because your kids are something's happened with your children, which will be the worst thing. And then your outlook's different. And then you could see, oh, gee, this person that was flying, he's not. And then you start to, as you get older, you start to realise.
Sorry about the cat, Adam.
No, that's all right. Hello. Hello, how you going?
It's not shy.
They've yet to do this.
No, you're just checking me out. That's all right. It's all good.
No, definitely. There's a big difference. I was going to ask you though. So when you were 19, that first job, do you have any moments that you remember that changed your perspective, or did you have any really difficult conversations? I remember you saying to me that you actually don't collect over Christmas period. Is that right?
Yeah, well, over Christmas period, I don't not so much collect, but I won't put customers because I used to do repossessions and or put accounts on hold. I don't do that. Probably, what are we now? Probably after around first week of December.
Yeah.
Because in the past we've done that. Other places we've been to, where I've worked, and the issue with that is that one, it doesn't reflect on the company.
Yeah.
That well.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the customers got the debt's been outstanding for ages, and you've been trying to, but it just doesn't look. And this goes back to 19, and between the ages of 19 and now that you're older, you realise, long time ago, but that around that Christmas time and Easter, it's happened to Easter. It's some things are a little bit more important than money. And those few weeks, you can just go. I'll give you a story. And it's not something that sits comfortable with me, but it's an experience, and it's in a way it's good to have that experience to understand. So it was a customer. I had to. It was a repossession of a vehicle, and it was a customer I've been trying to the normal stages. Go through the run of the mill letters, phone calls, and they weren't responding and.
Yeah.
Telling me where to go, all that sort of stuff, all the stuff that happens. And it got to the point where I had to send an agent out, and this was the Thursday before Good Friday for Easter. So I've sent the agent out there. I said, well, go out there. I didn't want to, but my boss said, no, you've got to do it. And by the letter of the law, we had to do it. By the letter of our processes and procedures.
Yep.
We'd gone through, it was everything we had to do, we had to do it. Anyway, so I said to the agent, go out there. Not thinking anything. I think I would have been 24, 25, something like that. So just about old enough to understand things, but
Still young though.
Still young, yeah. So I remember, so the agent's gone out there, and I'll move on to the next account, just like you got to do. You got to get through your 15, 20 accounts an hour. Whatever you got to do, you got to move on, and that's what I did. Then I get a phone call from the agent, the agent that I'd sent the account to go and collect the. This is interstate, and he's at the house that I sent him to collect. Was a four-wheel drive, and it had a caravan attached to it. Now you understand this is the day before the Easter break.
Easter break.
All I could hear was kids crying. They were about to leave because this was about 4:00, straight after school. They were about to leave to go to their holiday, right? And I was about to take the car, and I'm like, oh no. Still gets to me now because now that I'm a father, and it's not a nice thing when children and you start to think I caused this, but I didn't.
No,
but I am at that moment, and to the person on the other end of that, the father of those kids or the person that I needed to take the car off. Of course, I'm the bad guy, 100%. I'm ruining the holiday, in their eyes, and the kid's innocent, know nothing, right? And I'm like, so the guy goes to me, what do you want to do? The agent goes, what do you want to do? And I'm like, and it took me about a minute. I go, look, I don't know, just wait. And so I spoke to my boss, and he goes, no, you got to do it. I said, I can't do this. He goes, it's not. It can wait. But I understood me saying it can wait meant that you run the risk, and this is a cynical part of the job you do after years of doing it. This person could take the car off, they go, and then we never find them. And I've got to do. I mean, you can, but I've got to do skip trays and go through the whole thing again.
Yeah.
So
you're
caught between seeing the human side of it, right? And then the other part of it, the business side of it, which was it's a legitimate thing with plenty of customers that, I did a lot of skip tracing that, that you had to find and all that sort of stuff.
And a business still employs people and feeds people, so they can't, they have to have a certain amount of profit coming in to even,
100%.
Everyone's holidays is at risk.
Yeah.
If you're not getting paid from your business because they can't afford it because no one's paying their debt, then you're not going on holiday either,
No.
There goes your money.
Yeah, so we took the car and all that, and it never sat with me. So as I became a team leader and a manager, I made that sort of rule that for the the aesthetics, how it looks for the company that I work for, especially if they're a high profile or whatever, and it doesn't matter. But and also me from a human part of it, that work hard through the year leading into that. Do get from my team, that is, get your stuff sorted as much as you can, and then at a certain point, as I said, it works out to around about probably the next week or so. Don't do that. Don't whatever you can get, you get. We'll just let it go, and then so it just means that I still got an obligation to the business I work for. Clearly, I've got to get money in, and I've got to meet KPIs, just like we're all doing anything. But I have to find a different way to do it so it fits the business need and the human side of it. And then as you grow, that particular thing, it's 20 odd years ago, and it still stays with me because more so because I obviously in that period I've got married, had a child, you have your own, what life brings you. You understand that that can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter who you are. Having said that, we always had this. There are professional debtors around that play the game, and it's probably what's kept me in a job for 30 years. But but generally you find that the ones that are people want to do the right thing. Most people, and things just more than most people. A lot of people want to do the right thing. Circumstances are beyond their control. As I said, they lost their job. They can't find a job for a long time, so their lifestyle's got to change. And that's the other thing. When with humans, they don't like. No one does. No one likes a change when it's going to be scary or you got to go backwards in order to go forward. It's very hard, especially if it's you got other people relying on you, because you can feel like a failure. I get that.
Yeah.
I get that as a human being, as a father, or as anyone. So you don't want to go backwards. So when you're ringing up and making these phone calls, one thing is you don't take it personally because they're not having a go at you. They don't know you.
Yeah, they're being
You're piling on to all their problems. They almost guaranteed that if you're ringing for that, someone else, is ringing for something else, or they've got other issues, and you're just a pile on onto their life. So, so the key, I think, with my team and any team that I've sort of had since, is to make sure that you wear two hats, the business side of it, but you also understand the human side of it, and you talk like because they are human beings, and the keys, and you got experience now to go in the 30 seconds you make that phone call. We'll know who you're dealing with. You know who you're dealing with in terms of the person. I've spoken to lawyers and I've spoken to the truck driver. Up the bush somewhere. You can't talk the same way. They're two different types of schools of people. They're not different. Oh, they're different. They're not. One's not better than the other. You just need to find it.
Do you have like a framework to identify fairly quickly in the first 30 seconds whether they're like a driver type and just give me the details, or versus like someone who's analytical, or someone who's very emotional, but think about me, and do you have a sort of framework on how you're going to speak to who you've got on that line very quickly? Or?
Yeah, pretty quickly. But if someone was starting out, I could tell them all I like, but until they get on the phone and experience various scenarios, you're not going to know that.
For sure.
So now I can do it quickly because I said I've got years of experience. The team that I've got now are all over 40. It's just happened that way. It's not necessarily design. So, and very similar to all of us where we are in their life. So they understand that as well. So I'm confident when they're on the phone, they're not being, too much one way. Because you can't be too emotional either.
Yeah.
You can't be too.
Because no one will pay.
No one will pay. So you've got to find a balance. But you do, you get that in 30 seconds. You work out and you go. But you do your preparation. You get an account or whatever you're looking at, and you look at people's name. Obviously, you get the names. You got to speak to the person and the area, the product you're doing, the company you work for, what they do, and all that. And that should start to trigger what sort of person. Every phone call, you should put notes. Whoever's on action the account, and that gives you a bit of a framework of who you're dealing with as well. Well, depending again where you work, they have the occupation of the person, and then that'll drive how I'm going to speak. When
you call the client, I guess, do you jump straight into why you're calling, or do you have a conversation? Do you aim to have a conversation with that person first?
That depends. Again, the pre-work, the 30 seconds prior to me getting on the phone, who I'm dealing with, and I'll explain without being. If you're If you ring someone that's more laid back, and then usually they're up north of Australia, and they live in a property and they're really relaxed sort of thing.
Yeah.
They will, and it's just the character of the people. I find New South Wales and Victoria, Sydney and Victoria, and I know it sounds, I'm like generalising, but it's all, when you ring people, mostly it's business. Everything's fast paced.
Yeah.
Just like Sydney and Melbourne are, right? When you go further up north, it's not like that. They're a bit more relaxed.
I've experienced the same,
yeah. So it's not a knock. It's far from, in fact, they're better. They'll probably live 100 years. They don't worry about anything, But when you ring them up, so when you get on the phone, those people up there, they'll start talking about everything but what you want to talk about. So they'll start talking about fishing, how the weather, the surf's up and all that. And you need to have that conversation for about 10, 15 seconds. You got to
build the trust.
Yeah, you got to.
Have you ever pretended that you fish and you don't actually fish?
Yeah, 100%. Because
That's
that is.
I love that.
Not that I do fish, but I understand what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But that is the art of it. And that's the art of it. It's not even the art of a deck, like the art of communicating with people.
Yeah.
If I meet, you guys.
I definitely do it to some degree.
Yeah, you do it. You try and find a common thing. So this way you can talk to, a 3-year-old child, or you can talk to a 90-year-old woman or man, because I guarantee you'll learn from both.
How
and
many,
plenty of in between.
How many 3-year-old childs have you had to collect like items?
You know what it is? Well, I've got my son is now 12. You don't really have it's not necessarily a conversation. It's more like, you know what? Yeah, jokingly, you go, they make a lot of noise and this and that. But when you think back, especially when it's your own child, you actually don't realise they're actually teaching you more. They're teaching you they teach you to see what's really important. They teach you to say, okay, I'm focusing on stuff and getting upset and stuff that's, it's not going to be important in 3, 4, 5 years' time. And so you focus more on them because you know that when you've got a child, you've got a certain amount of period and then they're gone from that period. Like, you spend time with them and you put them down and they're not going to walk. Great. They're just there. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, and you encourage them, walk. Great. Then they start walking. You're walking around the house trying to fix things, make sure they don't bump into anything. And you think, gee, what have you wished for here, But every stage is you're learning something off them. As much as they're learning off you, you're learning off them and about yourself. So they do teach you. But with the kids, you do.
It's an interesting point. I think they do go through seasons, and you just won't experience that season of their life again.
100%. So you got to take that in. You got to do something that's spend time with them. When they ask you to do something, I'll give you an example. I worked as a broker for a couple of years, the mortgage broker and all that, and it was essentially I was working with someone trying to, and obviously you're a subby, so you're your own business effectively. So when it's your own business, the hours are, who knows? You work it all the time. And you get caught my son was quite young, he was 5 or 6, something like that. And I was always on the phone, emails at nights, this and that, because you're dealing with people not during the day, they're working during the day, you've got to deal with them at night. And during the day you're doing admin stuff and all that. And I remember one time my son said, "Oh, Dad, have you got time for me or do you want to make some time?" This is a 5-year-old kid. And I'm like, gee, this is, really, and that's what I'm saying, they teach you more. And you go, hang on, I'm focusing. My intention's right. I want to work. I want to create something for my family, and that was at that point. I thought, you know what, I'm going to miss out because what he wants to do with me today, he's not going to want me to do with it.
Yeah.
I'm going to want it when I'm old and on the couch. I want to
true.
do it, and he's not around because he's out with his friends. The song "Cats in the Cradle" was a song I muck around on the guitar in there. But it's
Is
true.
that the Cats in the Cradle with a silver
That one there.
I don't know the rest of it.
Yeah. So essentially it's a father has a child, but he's not there because he's got planes to catch, bills to pay, and the kid learns to walk, I'm quoting directly, while he's away, right? So and then in the next stage, the kid's 10 years old and he wants to play catch and he goes, I can't today. I'll catch up with you. Then the kid's 17 and he's out of college and whatever, and he goes, and the father says, "Oh, do you want to play? You're out?" And the kid goes, "No, I want your keys. I'm going out." And then the kid's grown up and he's got his own kids, so he's got his grandkids, and the father's doing the other way. "Oh, do you want to catch up?" And the son's going, "Oh no, I got the flu." The kid's got the flu. I'm busy. We'll have to make it another time. But by the time you get to 70, 80 years old, you're sitting on the couch going, "I don't have time." They do. You don't realise that. It's the same sort of thing, So I remember at that point I thought, you know what, I'll get back to doing the job that what I do know, and I work hard and I'll do the job right, and I'll work from home. So and I do a lot of hours, more so than probably when I'm in the office. Right, it's a lot but there's a balance. I pick up and drop off my son, and I'm lucky to work. As I said, work from home allows me to do that. But simple things like I drop him off and he'll give me the thumbs up, and I look forward to that. It's something that's because he's going to start high school next year, and over the next few years, like the song says, he's not going to need
Dad,
me.
don't drop me off. Can you just stay around the
100%.
corner? Can you park around the corner?
I'm already boring, and you're embarrassing. Your songs they're old and all that stuff. Whereas before he looked up to me, oh wow. It's not that he doesn't.
It's that age where they take on that they're the coolest, and everything's so special about them. They're starting to become somebody, right?
100%.
And they're trying to separate from
identity.
you and their parents, right?
Yeah.
So it makes sense. But they'll get over that phase, and then they come all the way. I did anyway. I came all the way back and go, oh, actually, parents aren't that. They're pretty cool if they don't care.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, 100%. And I know that, but it's just and I also do that. So my dad, I got back to playing the guitar because Dad's a guitar teacher and musician. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I thought I'm going to play because he's getting older, I'm getting older, and you don't know what And I thought, and I've got this lucky that he plays and can teach, and he's done all this stuff. Not that it matters what he's done in the past, but I got to get. I couldn't read music that well at that time, for example, because Dad would teach me, and I was like, yeah, no worries. I was able to listen to a CD and play, and you take it for granted because he's there, But as you get older, you realise that's not necessarily going to be the case, and I might as well get something out of it, and do. And this is a chance to we occasionally play together and whatever. And he now teaches my son, so I go there every Monday night, and so you become. I think it's as you get older, you become conscious of at times you've got more control of you than you think. You think you got time, you think you got everything under control, and you have to, but you don't really.
It's kind of. Do you mind if I just jump? Oh, you go first, because I'm going to sort of bring it back to the deck collecting for a second. But you want to?
Just a quick comment, and then we'll bring it back. So I think the 3 variables: time, health, and money. Like as you sort of go into your 40s and 50s, you've got your money, your time, and your health. So you're in that sort of sweet spot. But then as you sort of get older, you've got more time but less health, and so you got to play with those dynamics.
100%. Yeah, that's exactly 100%.
So I wanted to. So obviously, in debt collection, you're dealing with people's livelihood, right? Have you had any really difficult conversations that you had to navigate where the other party perhaps didn't have the best mental health, or it got quite serious? You had to get other, maybe the police involved, or
not so much with police involved, but you do. I've had some over these, with mental health, yes, where they've told we've the usual phone calls, whatever, and then they've told us, they're struggling with mental health and it's becoming all too much. Can you deal with someone else? Me to talk to someone else because they can't deal with. As I said to you before, I'm probably piling on all their other stuff that's going on. So. And that's really only, which is a great thing in a way. It's only recently that the last 5-6 years that you hear those stories, particularly from men. Before I never heard from them, and it's not because, and I don't reckon it's because people didn't have them. It's because particularly men wouldn't talk about it. They're not going to go and talk. Yep. You don't know me from the other side of the phone. They barely tell the people they know. They're not going to tell someone, a debt collector. They're not going to tell that sort of thing. So there is a little bit more of that. So when that happens, absolutely, you're conscious of that, so you be careful with you choose your words carefully, how you speak to them. I do not as a debt collector or credit control, but as a human, let them talk, because sometimes, and that's what I found over the years with debt collecting, is let people talk. When you go in there and go, you owe this money, where are you going to pay this, and you're not listening to them, you're just going over the top of them. I just want the money, I'm not interested. You're not getting your money, and you just made yourself look like an absolute, fool, right? And the company you're representing. Right.
Yeah.
But in instances where I was going back to someone that's said to you, I'm struggling mentally, it's all too much, is then you just have a chat, how you going, and what's how can I help you with you might spread out payments and say what works for you, what is it you want to do, as long as I don't come back with 50 cents, I'm going to pay you 50 cents a week or something. But it's not even about the money because, again, even people like that, they're genuine. That they're not trying to stuff you around. They want to pay. If they had the money today, they give it to you. They're not, it's not that. It's the circumstances they're in. So you generally find if you help them out, let them talk, let them, and I remember in one case I said to the person, you ring me anytime. You can ring me on my mobile, whatever, and just, if you can't pay it, I've got no problem. As long as you tell me, fine, I'll let it go, and we'll work something around it, whatever. And in this particular case, he called me a couple of times and we sorted it out, and it got sorted out in time. Now,
wow.
Did it get sorted out to meet my KPI so I look good to my boss? No. Do I really care about that sometimes? Not really. You got to find, one or two customers, it's not going to, I think listening to the person and helping them out long term, clearly, is going to be better for the relationship between the company and the person anyway. But then you get comments back. What happens then is going forward that they're not longer scared of this debt collector or this person ringing them. They'll ring you. Hey, I've got a problem. Early on, can you help me out? And they've done half your job. You want them to ring you if there's a problem. I don't expect everyone to pay all the time on time because I wouldn't have a job. You can't have that either as well. But yes, but the reality is no one's going to do that. Not everyone's going to do that all the time, pay all the time, on time all the time. Big corporations that we have can. And even they have issues, not money, but, other stuff, whatever. But, the small to medium business, they're not going to be flying all the time. No one does. It just doesn't work that way. So the key is your listening. Yeah. Now, when listening to someone like that talk, so the next time around when you get on the phone, you know how to have that conversation. That's going back to saying in 30 seconds, I know what's going to happen. It's because you've had a long conversation previously, and you know exactly who you're dealing with, and you choose your words.
Do you have to? Do you have a sort of duty of care or obligation to maybe sometimes refer them to other organisations like Beyond Blue or anything like that, or not really? No,
but it's never gotten to. I've never had to do that. I'm just trying to think. Never got to that. No, I never
That's
really.
good.
No, you never really got to that. Now again, years ago, I think. As I said earlier, particularly men, probably just didn't talk about it, especially not to a finance institution or something like that.
Yeah.
But I just never got to that point. As I said, I've had a few sort of I'm struggling, going to lose my business, and sometimes, and I'll preface this by saying sometimes you hear that a lot, and so you go, "This guy for real or not?" So you got to work it out. They just playing with you because I've had a story. It's an absolute shocking story, and where a person said to me when I rang for the debt, this is many, many years ago, and they said, "Oh, their child had been diagnosed with cancer, this and that." I'm sorry. I said, "I'll let it go. I'll contact you in a few months, and we'll purge it forward, and that's fine. It's not important." When I've contacted them back months later to check in and everything's going, clearly they were lying because they didn't know what I was talking about. What are you talking about? And then I lost it. Because you're taking, that is absolutely,
wild. That's terrible.
and I went hard on them and said, well, they were lying. So you're caught between the next call you make, do you be cynical and don't trust them? You can't do that because you've got to treat each one on its own merits.
If it's real and that person's suicidal,
100%,
and you don't treat them with that empathy.
Yeah, 100%. So but it takes, you probably got to hang up that phone call that you had and go for a walk because this is, I'm not taking the next call because I might say something that I shouldn't or not. It's not so much you say something you shouldn't because you're experienced enough to do that. It's like you said before, I'm not listening to someone that I should have listened to.
Yeah,
that's more probably the issue. Not so much that what I'm going to say. It's what I don't listen to. It's probably more the.
I did Vic emergency calls when the flooding was happening.
Yep.
And some of those calls, I had to refer them on to Beyond Blue. I had legitimately suicidal individuals calling up, and that was scary actually. And I underestimated it because I had a lot of experience on the phones, but never that sort of level of, I guess, conversation. It was never that. The stakes were never that high. I wasn't ready for it, but I was able to deal with it correctly. Yeah. But I just took every single call as if what they were saying was absolutely truthful and
you have to. You have to because again, if someone is I don't think they'd play around with that, especially when they get to that level. But if they are,
Well, some
it's
people
only gonna
were
be-
trying to get the free
Yeah.
the free accommodation. There were a few people who got through the ranks, and but even I don't know if I can say the company's name, but the organisation, the organisation who was tasked with basically providing emergency accommodation. We found out afterwards that there were quite a few people who pretended that they were in the affected areas, but they weren't. But
again, from the organisation who's providing that, what can they do? They're going to put something out there to help people. You're always going to get a small percentage, and it is a small percentage that they're going to manipulate it, or
right,
as long as the company or the people that are doing it with the right intention, and the right people, the ones that need it, are getting what needs to be. The other stuff that comes out of it, if there's a couple of people that are, well, what do you do? You're not going to. It's not a perfect world. It's not. No system is perfect. You can have all these sorts of grand plans. Oh, this will work, and it'll work like clockwork, and it doesn't.
with your years of debt collecting, do you think you've grown? How do you think it's helped you grow as a person? Just, maturity wise, do you feel?
Yeah. I think the maturity is, as I said earlier, understanding from the person on the other end of the phone, listening. Listening is a big one.
Yeah.
That's probably that. But what the biggest growth I think for me is not the debt collecting, is the managing myself and growing as a person myself, and then being able to manage other people. So my managing, I was sort of a team leader in the early days when I was young and all that sort of stuff, and then there was about a 10-year period where I was working as a sole credit person, which I could have been. You can call me a manager, or doesn't matter. I'm doing everything. So whether it's the manager or whether it's the emptying the bins, I'm doing everything. So it doesn't matter what you call me, right?
Yep.
But the last sort of 7 years when I've been a manager at quite rather large organisations, it's that's where I've grown. But I've grown because I've gone back to wherever I've worked and had a look at. And it's funny because I've actually, how do I want to be a manager? Well, the sort of manager I want to be is I go back to the 20 years prior. Which manager that I liked or didn't like, and I can guarantee you, it's probably the ones that I didn't like the style of management that I learnt the most, because I learnt don't do that. People don't like that. That's where you did learn from the ones that were good, clearly.
Yeah.
But sometimes people go, oh yeah, you learn all the good ones. Have a look at the bad ones that you had, because you don't want to make those mistakes. They're the ones you don't want. Because the bad managers weren't the bad managers are not managers that make you do work. Work's got to work. They're paying you got to work. It's the way they've treated you while you're doing the work, or they made you feel the way you're doing the work, or they, comments that I've had over the years that you go, right, I'll show you. You think if that's what you're going to say, you go in places where you shouldn't go, just because you might know something about it.
I had a sales manager one time come up to me just before lunch. I wasn't making enough credit card sales. This was back when I was like 19. He taps me on the shoulder. He's like, if you don't get another credit card sale by lunch, pack your shit.
I've had the same
just
thing
like,
with energy. Yeah.
And then I didn't get it. And he was like, no, I was just trying to motivate you to get the credit card sale. Yeah. I'm like, mate.
How's that motivating? A 19-year-old kid, that's not motivating. That's, it's your first taste of work potentially. And
it was. Yeah. That was my first job, actually, I think. No, my first sales job.
Close enough. I mean, you're only 19. So, so from a management, that's probably where the growth's been. And I'll tell you where I've learned a lot about my management, or trying to get good management. I spent, going back to AFL, I spent about 4 seasons at the under-18s, at one of the under-18 clubs, right? This is quite a successful club that in that 4 years we played in, I think, 2 grand finals, a prelim, and semi-final. So they finished no less than 4th, which is right. So, and I was quite old at that. I was a volunteer. I used to do sports training. So I used to do the strapping, do a bit of rehab with the players that were injured, all that, running with them, or just before they were about to get drafted to the AFL.
Yeah.
And so watching that, and it was just after the time, this is 2004, so just after the Brisbane Lions, who I followed, had won, 3 grand finals in a row. So I started to look at why those organisations, the club I was at and these other clubs, why they were so successful. Because I realised at that point, I was 26, 27, the game is 4 hours on the weekend, right? That's it. And they train, they train a few hours through the week, and Like, as you get later in the week, they don't train much at all because they've got to save. So the rest of it is management. You know, they're like especially the AFL players today. They're there so much, but they're not necessarily playing football. Out of an 80-hour week that they're there, they're only playing football for 4 hours. What are you doing for the other 76?
Really? I didn't know that. Yeah.
Well, the game's only Saturday or Sunday, whatever they're playing. What's happening? From a coach point of view, the coach went from a coach to they're not. They're managers. They only coach the game, you know, in terms of at training, that particular training session they want to do, and the game. The rest, they got 45 players, 42 players, like any organisation that's got, you know, people. They got a unique one where they're aged between the 18 and 35. So they got young men, and even at 35, you're a young man, but not in football terms. You are. Yeah. Well, you are for the rest of your life. It's not like, for the rest.
I'm feeling old, but
imagine how I feel. So I looked at that in terms of why these organisations were successful as opposed to some of the others or whatever. And it was because what I really worked out was that everyone that was in that club, doesn't matter what you did. I don't care if you were the coach, the player, the best player, not the worst player because none of them are bad, but the last player picked on your list, or the bootstrapper that's volunteering or whatever. Everyone had the same common goal, and that's not to win the grand final because that's the byproduct of what you do through the year.
Yeah,
it was about making that person around you or the people around you better than they were. Help them out. You know, don't criticise them. If you have to have hard conversations, and there were times where I'd be around that. As I said, I was only volunteers, I'd only hear it. You've got to have hard, you know, eye-to-eye conversation. Great, do it. Overall, you're trying to be positive and trying to find, but you're there as a manager trying to, you know, every single person there, wherever you work, or any single person for that matter, there's something good about them. You got to tap in to find that. Like you were saying before, the guy said you got to get your credit card done by 12 or you're going home. What rubbish is that? You know, if you're 19 with a little bit more wisdom, you say, well, you know what, mate? So I'm only 19. I got my whole life ahead of me. I don't need this rubbish, right?
Yeah.
So I learned a lot from those footy clubs, the Brisbane Lions, because obviously I followed them, but Geelong's been like that. You know, Collingwood now. There's a lot. You look at those. What is a common thing? And the common thing is people, good people. Having good people. That's all it is. Because the clubs are colours and walls.
Yeah.
It changes as you go through. Different people and all that.
That's right.
And so I use the same with my management because I've got people in there. In my case, they're pretty experienced at what they do. I don't need to teach you how to pick up a phone and what to say word for word. You're experienced. What I do need to help you is guide you. You know, guide you to if there's an issue or whatever. But I don't want. I also need to know individual. That person, because I've got, 5 or 6 people, they're 5, 6 different people. My approach has to be slightly different, and I've got to, going back to the, picking up the phone call in 30 seconds, understanding. Same with your team. Got to work them out pretty quick. This is what I'm dealing with. I can't give that person, I wouldn't give anyone a spray, but you know what I mean. It's a different time. But
pepper spray.
The old spray. I'm going back to footy talk here.
Yeah.
But it's knowing about that person. So how can I get the best out of them? There's ways, and you might have to do 3 or 4 different ways to the 5 or 6 different people because they're different. They are different. They're not going to respond to you. One person's not going to respond to you the same way as the other person did using the same method because they're just different. So you need to tap into the work out, okay, what's going to work. So I try and get people with a growth, and that's the other thing, that's a growth mindset.
Yeah.
Generally. You also get sometimes people that, don't want to,
So people who can do, not can't do people, right? People who are
that's
like,
what
I
you
can
hope
do
for.
this. Yeah.
But you also have, you have scenarios where you have people in their last year or two of work, 65, 70 or whatever. You can't go give them new projects and saying, oh, what do you see yourself in 5 years? Because they'll tell you where.
Hopefully not dead.
Well, that's number one, but probably on a beach and not worrying about, a paycheck or anything, all that sort of stuff. So you need to be able to go, a bit like the customer. With your workers, you need to go, you want to get to know them personally, not every little detail, but if you get to understand them a bit personally, you go, okay, I know what they need, I know what they want, I know what makes them tick, and you get the best out of them. Because you're not belting them, around. You might say, we're not struggling here, we need to do this. Again, that's a work thing. But again, there's ways around that. You still can't go, you can't go screaming at them, clearly. So, yeah.
Do you find it's difficult to manage like expectations do you, when, being their friend versus being their boss, like balancing that dynamic?
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm getting better at it. I'm a little bit more experienced now, but at the start, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I'm naturally I don't like confrontation, all right, despite the fact that I'm a debt collector, but I don't like that. It's not my personality that, I don't like that sort of. So you got to find, and I do, as I said to you, I always see the good in people. Sometimes then you got to be careful because some people may take for granted that you are, that you can be, let's call it soft. I don't like that word, but, a little bit more, you can probably. So it's trying to find a really good balance. But again, I think how I get around that is by being clear and concise in what I expect of them. Not hiding, got nothing to hide. This is what we need to do. This is the expectations of the company and essentially me. If you've got any issues, I'm there to help. I'm the sort of manager that they know that you don't book a meeting to sort something out. If you want to talk to me, I'm available anytime. You can ring me, you can do it, email me. Yeah. So
I'm curious to hear. So you've got like a dynamic team, and I imagine you've got different personality types and a one approach management style for, the different personality types won't land as well for one person as it does for another.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of, like, let's say you've got someone who's very process driven and very compliant, they're very good and analytical, but they don't maybe take feedback directly so well, versus another one that's just like, tell me what I need to do. Yeah. What's an example of how you would coach one person one way and then completely different to another one?
So the one that won't take criticism or directions is probably the best way to do it, is to, then you don't tell them direct what to do. You go around it. So you make them involved to feel that they're important, and they make it, they're actually coming up with the idea, even though they're really probably not. But you are.
Stroke the ego.
Yeah, it is that.
Yeah.
So you'll go to the person, you go, what do you think we should do in this scenario? Do you reckon?
That's hilarious.
And you still throw your input in and all that, right? But the other thing is you got to be a little bit open, because they might come back to you and go, I want to do this way, and you got to be open and go, well, that might work too. That's fine. I don't have all the answers. You should have some. Clearly, you're a manager, right? But you got to, So it's if you got someone like that, you go, right, what do you think? And you get them involved, and it goes back to letting people feel that they are making a difference, they are important, that their job their input makes a difference too. And this goes, I like to give my team affirmation of, I'll tell them we need to do this, this, and this to get to what we're going to get to. But then I've got to show them that. So to get that affirmation, that they have done it, hey, listen, we got to this level. We got this. We got this because those processes and things you're doing working. So what it does to them, it gives them, okay, it does work. Like when I've started jobs and I've heard it, let's see what he does. And I haven't realised I've heard, he said he's going to do this, and let's see if it works. I've heard things like that, right? So, but I get it, because they don't know me. All right, I've come into a new manager, they're not sure and they're apprehensive or whatever. So you've got to give them the affirmation to go, once you show them that what I've told you to do gets results, they believe in what you do. It's the same as a coach of a football team or anywhere. It's like when if you tell a kid, don't do this, this and that, but if you show them, then they say, that's why. You'll get burnt if you touch it. Physically, so it's the same sort of thing. You got to give them. So that's how I do it. And then you get the other person that, and they're probably clearly easier to manage, where they just go, bang, bang, bang. They're gung-ho and they just, get through stuff. There's still things you got to be careful with that, because those people can get bored after a certain period of time. So you have to keep them motivated. You have to find them, even to the point where, and this is what as much as people go, how can you say that? But if I get them to a point where they don't want to be there, they want to move on because they want to grow, great. It hurts me because, you've got a good person.
You lose someone good.
But you don't want someone sitting there an extra 3, 4, 5 years going through the motions, because they won't improve. Their work will decline. They'll make it bad for everyone else around you, because they'll just be shitty every day.
Yeah.
So there's that balance. And then as a manager or as a leader, if that person's gone on to do something better, good, it's a bit of a tick to you as well. Good on you. It's not. I'm not jealous. I'm not. Like anyone else, you're trying to get on in the world. Good on you. So that's how the approach you got to take.
And also, there's lots of people out there. I guess you can find someone to replace them. If you know what you're looking for, anyway, right?
That's the thing. I don't care who you are, what you are. we all are replaceable. And you'll get a farewell card and they'll feel sorry for you and they'll move on 5 minutes later. The job will be advertised.
I hear something really funny. So my partner, I won't say where she works, but her company, she's worked there for more than 10 years. And she got a certificate, like a congratulations, you worked here for 10 years. It was just, she got it 2 years late, by the way. A 10-year certificate 2 years late.
At the top of your
It just said,
can't count.
Hi, Maria. Thank you for working for us for 10 years. That's it. And congratulations. There's no chocolate, nothing. Just
no golden watch.
At that point, I feel like you should just don't send that. You know what I mean? Just don't send anything at that point.
Yeah, probably, especially 2 years later.
Yeah. Just don't send it.
COVID didn't count those 2 years. So.
Yeah. Clearly they're not in finance, can't count. They're giving you 2 years after you. But yeah, and that's the lesson to learn is that you do your job and you do it properly in that. But that's where you realise that you got to find time for yourself, your family, if you've got kids or partner, whatever it is you like, because the job will move on. The place will move on. I don't care who you are, if you're the CEO or whatever. You see it with banks. I don't care if it's the CEO that's on millions of dollars. They'll move on and go to the next one. So I don't care who you are. That doesn't matter. So so I think the key there is that do your work well, and get in your respect and all that, but find a balance of the people you come home to. 99% of the time don't care. They just want you around. They don't care what your role is.
Yeah, some people they build their identity based on how much they earn, the status, what they do, to give them that sense of self-importance. But in the end of the day, what's important is just, how you treat other people, spending time with family and loved ones.
That's all you got left.
That's all you got.
That's all said and done. No one's read out a bank statement at a eulogy. I've never heard a eulogy where they've read out your bank statement how many homes you got. So,
in honour of Dean, 100000. Is it 6 figures? Really? Got 6 figures? Wow.
Yeah, exactly right. So but having said that, on the flip side, you've got to work. You've got to have a pride in what you do. Yeah. You've got to care because it motivates you to be a better person. It encompasses everything else around you. So I'm not saying, give up your jobs and spend time at home all day because you'll be eating grass and drinking water the rest of your life. But it's finding that balance and saying, if you're lucky enough to be happy in your job and growing and coming home and still having a good family life, friends around, and you can, roughly do what you want to do at times, you're doing probably better than most people around the world. That's good.
I've got a question, and maybe we'll start to wrap up. But so you've talked about how being a father has helped you in your role. Has your role over the last 20 years is there any examples of where you felt like something very specific to your role has helped you personally in your own life, the other way around? To be more resilient or to be more understanding, or is there anything that sort of comes to mind? Yeah,
resilient probably as going back to, as I said, talking to a lot of different people over the 25, 30 years, you realise how I bring it back to my own life is that you go, well, because when you're young you go, oh, we all want to be rich, famous and all this and all that, and so you see bright lights, you see, oh, if only I got to this.
If I got to this,
and then sometimes you get to this.
Yeah.
You had that goal when you were a kid. I want that car. I wanted this. I wanted that. And then you realise it's not all it's cracked up to be. 6 months later, you go, oh, it's not that fun anymore because I got that. So,
the car still goes from A to B, right? You still have to drive.
Nothing wrong with a nice sports car and all that sort of stuff.
That's true. Yeah.
But if you think that that's going to solve all your problems and you're going to be happy, content every day, you're kidding yourself because it's not. So I think what I've learnt is that it doesn't matter what walk of life. In fact, I'd argue the more money and when I say more money, more sort of the prestige, what seemed to be prestige in life, the more sort of you become it comes with its challenges as well. Exactly the same as if you're struggling. It's the same. So somewhere in between, you have to find contentment to go, I want to be driven, still want to be driven, but I want perspective of life. So And I think that's what it's done for me. It's right. Okay, when I say to myself, "Gee, I haven't done enough. I want more, and I want more, and I want more." That's okay, but at some point you got to go, right, I got to that. 5 years ago, I was probably wishing where I am, wishing to be where I am now, and now I'm there. Now I'm wishing to be here. And it's like, well, at some point, you can't keep always wanting.
Yeah.
So that's probably what it's taught me. It's taught me to say, okay, we look at celebrities, or we look at someone, you read in the papers or online, and they're a successful, run this and they do this and they got all that, and they own these houses and they own these cars, and you go, yeah, but that's superficial stuff. You're not seeing, the person that's got, little debt, probably not earning much money, but got no real debt, no real worries. Well, not worries, but they're on a percentage. They're doing better.
Yeah, they could definitely.
They can do what they want in their own time. They got freedom. You really working to somehow at some point have some sort of freedom to do choices you want to make. So sometimes going really, wanting to be up here all the time. If someone's going to pay you big money at a big corporate company, I'll be honest with you, they're going to own you. You think you got freedom? Well, you want to earn 400,000 or 500,000? You find out if you got freedom. They'll ring you at any time. They'll ring you at any time, and you got to answer. And that's so. Have you got freedom? You might got show that I've got. I can drive this flashy car.
You got a nice car, but
yeah.
Prison in your own.
Your prison, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what it's taught me to find when I go really hard. Do want to go really hard? Great, but don't get too ahead of yourself. Conversely, the other way, you don't want to be in the bottom too long either. And so you got to find that. You got to because you got pride.
Yeah.
So yeah,
definitely.
That's what it's probably taught me.
Yeah.
But that comes with years, time.
No, that's
awesome. Well, look, thank you so much for coming out, Adam. That was a really, really awesome conversation.
It was really fun.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Thank you for having me, Caden and Mark. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, awesome. And we'll definitely touch base again on your music as well, because it sounds like something that you're pretty passionate about.
Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, it's been part of my life for all my life. So yeah.
Actually, I guess as the last thing,
Yep.
Is there anything that you've read recently, any sort of TV shows or books or anything that you've come across that's been really interesting that you'd recommend to our audience? Can be anything.
Yeah. I read, and it wasn't read, it was by Spotify Audio. Recently, obviously, we lost Matthew Perry from Friends. And so I listened to his biography, came out about a year ago. And he was doing, so I listened to that, obviously, after everything happened in the last month. So I thought I'd listen to it because he's sort of someone, there's not too many sort of actors, particularly they usually end up being comedians, that actually you look at the character that they play and you go, I believe that. Or they're good at it. The reason is they're very good at what they do. And it's because they make you believe. It's real. They're not, most of it is authentic. It is not just a scripted thing. So I read his book and there was a lot of interesting, obviously, and it's an area that I don't know much about, so I'm not going to discuss it, but he's obviously had his issues with addiction and that. But beyond that, you actually see a very vulnerable person, and people have come out since recently, a very person that actually he helped a lot of people, probably generous to a fault. And usually you find with those sort of people, Robin Williams, similar, that they very, very in touch with the human side of themselves and other people, and that can leave you very vulnerable, which is probably what endears us to them as well, because we go, oh yeah, it doesn't matter that he's rich and he's on, $20 million a year and he's got all that. I see the person in beyond that. And he says, and I encourage everyone to have a read of it now. So there are topics in there that are a bit, could be triggering for some people. So, that's up to you. Yeah, keep that in mind. But from beyond that, I think it's a book worth reading, and you just get to understand that if you understand a little bit about his life, then you understand why, how he lived his life, and you'll see a different take of a person that otherwise we'd only know through a screen. So.
Yeah. Sad, but I think that's sounds like a really good book to check out.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. All right. Well, let's
Thanks
wrap it there.
again.
Thanks again, Adam.
No worries. Thanks you.
Mate.
Catch you, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.